Greed doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't knock on the door or announce itself. It slips in quietly, disguised as ambition, disguised as hunger for success, disguised as the desire for just a little more. At first, it feels harmless, even motivating. You tell yourself you're only trying to improve your life, to secure your future, to escape mediocrity. But greed has a way of blurring lines. What starts as a goal slowly turns into an obsession, and before you realize it, you're no longer chasing success, you're being controlled by it. In the beginning, everything was simple. People worked, earned, shared, and slept with a sense of peace. Enough was enough. There was satisfaction in progress, not pressure. But somewhere along the way, enough stopped being enough. Someone wanted more than their share, then another. And soon the idea of limits felt outdated. More money, more power, more attention, more control. The world didn't change overnight. It shifted gradually, one small compromise at a time. Greed is dangerous because it never feels like greed at first. It feels like strategy. It feels like being smart, being ahead of others, being willing to do what others won't. It whispers, take the risk, bend the rules, you deserve this. And people listen. They start cutting corners, justifying lies, stepping over others, not because they are evil, but because they are afraid of being left behind. As greed grows, trust begins to disappear. People stop collaborating and start competing. Friends become rivals. Partners become threats. Every relationship turns into a transaction. Every conversation hides an agenda. The question is no longer how can we grow together, but how can I win even if you lose? And slowly, silently, the foundation of everything begins to crack. The most terrifying part is that greed doesn't just destroy the weak, it consumes the successful first. The more you gain, the more you fear losing it. The richer you become, the poorer your peace becomes. You stop sleeping well. You stop trusting anyone. You start measuring your worth in numbers, likes, followers, and bank balances, and without realizing it, you trade your freedom for a lifestyle that owns you. At some point, the system breaks, not because of lack of resources, but because of lack of balance. The few at the top keep pulling, the many at the bottom keep falling, and the gap becomes so wide that it can no longer be ignored. Anger replaces hope, desperation replaces patience, and what once felt like progress starts feeling like collapse. Greed doesn't just destroy money, it destroys values, it destroys empathy, it destroys the idea that humans are meant to rise together. When greed becomes the main driver of decisions, everything turns into a competition, even survival. And that's when society stops being a community and starts becoming a battlefield. This is how it begins. Not with chaos, not with war, not with fire, but with a simple thought inside the human mind. I need more. At first, no one notices the damage. The world still looks normal on the surface. Markets are open, cities are busy, people are smiling in photos, but underneath, something is rotting. The rules that once protected fairness are slowly rewritten, not to help everyone, but to benefit those who already have power. Laws become flexible for the rich and strict for the poor. Justice becomes a luxury, and inequality stops being an accident and starts becoming a design. People begin to feel it in small ways. The cost of living rises, but salaries stay the same. Dreams become expensive. Education turns into a privilege. Healthcare becomes a business. The message is subtle but clear. If you can't afford to live with dignity, that's your failure, not the system's. And greed sits comfortably at the top, watching millions blame themselves for problems they didn't create. As resources concentrate in fewer hands, fear spreads among the rest. People start working longer hours, chasing side hustles, sacrificing rest, relationships, and mental peace, all to survive in a race that never ends. The irony is painful. The harder they run, the further the finish line moves, and greed keeps whispering, work more, compete harder, someone else is about to take your place. Morality begins to feel like a weakness. Kindness feels risky. Honesty feels expensive. People learn that playing fair doesn't guarantee success, but playing dirty often does. So they adapt. They lie on resumes. They exploit loopholes. They step on others quietly and call it networking. Nobody wants to be the villain, but everyone wants to win. And in that silent agreement, integrity becomes collateral damage. The media glorifies excess. Luxury is celebrated as inspiration, not questioned as imbalance. Billionaires are treated like heroes, while the suffering of millions becomes background noise. The more people consume, the emptier they feel. But instead of slowing down, they buy more, chase more, want more, trying to fill a hole that greed created in the first place. And then comes the emotional collapse. Anxiety becomes normal. Burnout becomes becomes a badge of honor. Loneliness spreads in crowded cities. People are more connected than ever, yet deeply isolated, because when everything is measured in profit, even human connection starts feeling like a transaction. This is the second stage of destruction. Not explosions, not revolutions, but exhaustion. A tired world running on empty, pretending everything is fine, while greed quietly tightens its grip on every aspect of life.
Eventually, the consequences can no longer be hidden. The cracks that were once invisible become impossible to ignore. Protests rise. Voices grow louder. People begin to question the systems they were taught to trust. But by now, greed is deeply rooted, not just in institutions, but in mindsets. Even those who suffer from it still dream of becoming the ones who benefit from it. The powerful respond not with solutions, but with distractions. Entertainment replaces awareness. Trends replace truth. Outrage cycles every week, so nothing stays important long enough to change. The masses are kept busy arguing with each other, while the real problems remain untouched. Greed survives best in noise, where no one has time to think deeply. At this stage, society becomes divided into extremes. On one side, excess beyond imagination. On the other, survival with dignity becoming impossible. The middle slowly disappears, and without a middle, there is no balance, only pressure. A system cannot stand when too much weight rests on one side, but greed refuses to let go, even if it means collapse. People start losing faith, not just in governments or corporations, but in the future itself. Hope feels naive. Dreams feel unrealistic. Young minds grow up already tired, already anxious, already convinced that life is about struggle, not meaning. And when a generation loses hope, the damage becomes generational. What's tragic is that by now, greed doesn't even feel rewarding anymore. Those at the top are trapped by their own success, surrounded by wealth, but disconnected from purpose. Those at the bottom are trapped by survival, too exhausted to imagine change. Everyone is stuck in different cages made of the same material. This is when destruction becomes psychological, not just of economies, but of identity. People forget who they are without their job titles, their income, their social status. Self-worth becomes conditional. You are only valuable if you produce, earn, or perform. And slowly, humans stop seeing themselves as humans and start seeing themselves as assets. Greed has now destroyed something far more important than money or systems. It has destroyed the meaning of life itself. And then comes the inevitable collapse. Not all at once, but in waves. Businesses fail, not because there was no demand, but because the system was designed for a few to thrive while many struggled. Communities break, not because people stopped caring, but because survival demanded every ounce of energy. Trust evaporates entirely. Governments, corporations, even neighbors cannot be relied upon. Every contract, every promise, every handshake feels fragile, as if it could shatter at the slightest pressure. At the very top, the illusion of control begins to crack. The wealth they accumulated cannot shield them from the chaos they helped create. Markets crash, supply chains fail, and the very systems that greed depended upon start to crumble. People who once thought they were untouchable discover that money cannot buy immunity from a society in disarray. Greed has fed itself into a trap. The more it took, the weaker the foundation became. Meanwhile, the rest of society faces the consequences in the harshest way possible. Poverty spikes, inequality becomes deadly, and desperation drives decisions that were previously unimaginable. Crime rises, social unrest grows, and the gap between survival and morality narrows. People are forced to make choices, not because they want to, but because the system leaves them no alternative. Greed, which once seemed like a personal ambition, has now become a collective curse. But the worst damage is not material, it is cultural and moral. Generations grow up learning that success is measured by accumulation, not by compassion. competition, by dominance, not by collaboration, by selfishness, not by shared prosperity. Greed does not just destroy wealth, it destroys ethics, empathy, and humanity itself. Communities that once thrived on trust and cooperation are now networks of suspicion and competition. Even love and friendship are questioned if they don't come with gain. And yet, even in this ruin, greed whispers its same old lie. There is still more to take. There is still a way to win. People listen again and again, perpetuating a cycle that has already proven destructive. It is a reminder that greed doesn't just destroy externally, it destroys internally, within the mind and the heart, long before the world shows the damage. This is the final lesson of greed. It never stops at taking. It consumes everything in its path: money, relationships, trust, hope, and ultimately the very soul of humanity. Yet, in the aftermath of such destruction, there is a strange clarity. When everything that greed touched is broken, wealth, power, status, and illusion, people are forced to confront the truth. The emptiness left behind is undeniable. No amount of money can rebuild trust. No amount of power can restore peace. No accumulation of things can bring back lost time, lost relationships, or lost purpose. And it is in this silence, in this void, that the true cost of greed is revealed. Some try to rebuild, but rebuilding requires humility, patience, and empathy, qualities that greed had long suppressed. The hardest lesson is realizing that what was taken cannot simply be replaced by more. Communities must learn to work together again, to value people over profit, and to measure success not by accumulation, but by balance. Individuals must relearn self-worth beyond wealth, kindness beyond transactions, and freedom beyond possessions. It is slow, painstaking work, because the corruption of greed runs deep. History shows us this cycle repeating over and over. Greed rises, consumes, and destroys. Then the survivors pick up the pieces, restore what they can, and try to teach the next generation the importance of moderation. But the cycle is dangerous, because greed never truly disappears. It waits quietly in ambition, in envy, in desire. It grows in moments of insecurity and fear, whispering that more is always better, that limits are unnecessary. And if not checked, it will begin again, slowly, quietly, and inevitably. The final lesson of greed is not just about money. It is about mindset. It is the subtle shift from enough to never enough, from cooperation to exploitation, from humanity to selfishness. And when that mindset spreads, it does not discriminate. It destroys everything: families, communities, nations, and the very essence of what it means to live a meaningful life. Greed's true power is in its silence. It does not roar, it seeps. It does not strike, it corrodes. And by the time the destruction is visible, it is often too late to reverse. The world, the people, the values, all that could have been saved, are gone, replaced by the cold reality that unchecked desire, once unleashed, spares nothing. And so we are left with a question that history repeats repeatedly, yet humans struggle to answer. Will we let greed rise again, or will we finally learn that sometimes enough is truly enough?